January 4th this year, a day that I will never forget.
I came downstairs and asked my husband to be seen Julian.
I have not.
I went upstairs and opened the door, and Julian was laying on the floor, but he was on top of his comforter. And he was in a weird position between his nightstand and a wall.
Rick!
And I hear her voice rising with increasing intensity.
I lost it. I completely lost it. It was so bad that my husband had to tell me to get out of the room.
He's in this weird position, and I'm wondering, can I move him because he may have fallen backwards and hit his head, and I don't want to mess with his neck.
And what really sent me into panic is I could smell urine.
I have found my son unconscious.
My husband called 911.
I followed the ambulance to the emergency room, and he's moaning and he's screaming, clearly in pain. And I sit down next to his ear. I say, Julian, I start talking to him. Don't know if you can hear me, but you're in the hospital now. He leans his head back. This little tear comes out of his eyes. And on the one hand, I am so relieved because I feel like I'm getting through to him, but there's part of a brain there. But on the other hand, he's in such pain, and I can't do anything about it. Dr. Bader came down. He said, the very first thing we've got to do is take a CT scan to make sure that we know what's going on inside of him.
He has a lesion inside the fluid spaces in the brain. It's in the middle of his brain, literally.
The most emergent issue is getting fluid off the brain.
And by giving him a surgical operation to put a tube in his head.
My worst case scenario is that, at that point, is that Julian would be a lifelong dependent upon the family, that there would always have to be someone who had to take care of him. That was my greatest fear. Actually, that's my second greatest fear. The first greatest fear was that he would die.
First, we had to insert this camera inside the skull. We make a small opening in the skull, so
I had done a ton of research on different options when it came to brain surgery. When Dr. Bader was telling us what he was planning on doing, he mentioned the actual surgery, and when he said it, I was like, that's the one. Okay, I'm good now.
At Adventist Health Glendale, we have a set of equipment that allow us to do very minimally invasive procedures inside the brain without the need to do an open surgery. The first surgery that we did is we went inside with this camera to be able to take biopsies from that lesion to find out what it is. In the same time, relieve the pressure that was building up inside his brain that made him lose his consciousness.
So he explains the process to us that he can actually map the exact route that they're going to go through.
And through tiny instruments that measures the millimeter, we're able to insert these instruments through this camera that goes down to the structures of the brain and able to remove a tumor or open a pathway.
After surgery, we were concerned that he would have to relearn, how to walk, how to talk, all of these things. But once he was able to get some stamina, it wasn't so much relearning, it was stimulating the body to get going again. And all of that happened over a span of 15 days.
I was going to be working at NASA this spring before all this happened.
The people at NASA were incredibly gracious, and when we told them when it happened, they said, hey, we picked Julian. We want him.
His brain is his future.
Thank you for not destroying my brain.
Kudos to the nursing staff.
They were so instrumental, of course, in Julian's care, but our care too. Because as Julian started, coming around, it was hard to leave. But at the same time, now that I knew the nurses and how cohesive they all were together as a team, I wasn't worried.
We cannot speak highly enough of the hospital. I mean, everybody that we ran into in the medical department, I don't care if they were a respiratory nurse, I don't care if they were moving the beds, they had such compassion.
Because of Adventist Health Glendale, we have our beautiful son.
Thank you, Adventist Health Glendale. Thank you to the nurses, surgeons, doctors who saved my life.
I am so thankful to Dr. Bader. I would say she would not be there without him. And we owe him the world.